Here is how I teach students to make a monochromatic value scale. After talking a bit about color theory, I have them choose a color. Here I've got red on my palette. And then they will add white and black to their palette so that they can practice making tints and shades. I set it up so that you will do tinting on one row and shading on another row. The first thing I place is the color I've chosen. So I'm going to paint my first square on each of these red. And the nice thing about this is if you start with red and then tint from it and start with red and then shade from it, you can see how even the red color itself will look a bit different when it's next to a lighter color or a darker color. And now I put in my pure red, and when I'm working on my palette with this, so that I don't waste a lot of the acrylic paint, I will make a little pool of some color here, and I will just, for my first tint, add a little bit of white to it. Not a lot, just a bit. And keep in mind, as you're working with the acrylic paint, that it will dry a little bit darker than the color that you originally see when you paint. So here is my first tint. So to add white to a color is to tint it. So here is my first tint. So it's slightly lighter. And then I will go back to my palette, add a bit more white. And this will be my second tint for the color. The key for this project is slowly adding more tint as you go and trying to get your final color in the tinted area to be not white, but in this case, a very, very light pink. So when I go to do my last one, I'm cleaning my brush a bit and then making sure it's just slightly pink, like this, for my lightest color. And then along the bottom row, when you're working with shading and adding black to the color, sometimes it's easiest to start actually with the darkest tone and add a bit of color into the black, like this. And the most interesting paintings I find don't go all the way to black, but just to the very, very darkest of the shade that you can get by still mixing color in. And then here, I'm just going to add more red, like this, and work backwards from that color. So if you're having a student who has a hard time, or if you are a student who's having a hard time getting all the way to your lightest or all the way to your darkest shade, then maybe start backwards and start with a puddle of white paint and slowly add the red to it, or a puddle of dark paint and slowly add the red to it. Here we go. And one more. Excellent. Once we finished our monochromatic value scales, the next part of this series will be to move on to a portrait painting.